Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. Today, I have a dear friend of mine in this business. We have Nathan Connolly. He is the CEO and founder of INVO Aesthetics. It's a Philadelphia based regenerative skincare and hair restoration company that he launched in December of 2023. And, for those of you probably know him, but he spent over a decade building some of the most recognized brands in medical aesthetics before going out on his own. And now he's doing his own thing. They're all across the country and there's growing. So, welcome, Nathan.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So, what I always do, I always like to go back to the beginning. So, it's just like, Nathan, so just like tell us a little bit more about how you even, got into the aesthetics arena. Like, was it something that was like right out of college or like, tell me how you even broke into this industry in the first place?
Yeah, it was definitely not something I thought I would be doing when I was younger. I was very passionate about sports and athletics. My mother at the time was a physical education teacher, so sports was a big part of my life.
Mhm.
And I pursued that in college and then briefly professionally overseas. So aesthetics wasn't really top of mind. But when that career ended, my mother had actually gone back to school once I had graduated college, and she became a physician's assistant. And
Wow.
she ended up in the dermatology world and kind of dabbled in the med derm and aesthetics. So when it was time to grow up and get a real job, she suggested, "Hey, you should look into some of these companies. The sales reps are great, and there's a real opportunity there for a career." So I ended up reaching out to several companies, and one gave me an opportunity. That company happened to be a startup in the aesthetic space about 20 years ago. And
Mhm.
once I got my foot in the door, I realized how lucky and fortunate I was to be in this industry and how hard it can be to break in. So I just never looked back.
That's awesome. So tell me more. So you were a sports, so you were playing basketball overseas?
That was the dream. I had aspirations to play in the NBA as most young basketball players do, and realized early on that that is an entirely different level, but that you can still see the world and experience different cultures by playing overseas. So I wanted to embrace that for as long as I could while the body would still allow it, and I think it really helped to uh, cultivate me into the person I am today. When you get to experience other cultures, not just visiting, but you're living there and you're immersed in those cultures and meeting all these great people, it really opens your eyes to the world and different opportunities.
Where were you?
I was in a handful of places, so Germany, Portugal, Austria, Ireland, briefly China, and New Zealand and Switzerland. So all over the place. Yeah, it was a good time.
That's super cool. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it's really cool that you kind of had that background, and I'm sure that is like coming in handy, as in I know you traveled more beyond that, but like living there, like you said, is a big thing. Kind of comes in handy probably as you're like building your business to be like more global or have you as the years go on. That's really cool. And so like for you, it's like when you were like working with others and like what did you see in the market that you felt that others weren't seeing yet and how did that kind of like springboard info?
Yeah, so I was fortunate again to work with the some of the biggest aesthetic companies in this space, and I've only done skincare. I've never dabbled in injections or devices, so I really felt confident with topical aesthetics. A few years ago, when I was at all of these trade shows and conferences and talking to physicians and PhDs, I kept hearing stem cell based aesthetics or regenerative aesthetics
Mhm.
or longevity. So really, I felt like that was the direction the industry was kind of pivoting.
Yeah.
And I was at a point in my career where I had the opportunity to be at the executive level. And so the next, I thought, natural step, especially in challenging myself, was to start a brand. So
Mhm.
I decided that was a good opportunity and a good timing to do so. And again, having been in the industry for so long, I was able to develop some great relationships over the years. I leaned on those, did a tremendous amount of research, and then we came together, a small number of us, to start Invo, based on stem cell regenerative aesthetics for both facial rejuvenation and hair restoration. So that's kind of what led me to where we are today.
Yeah, and I know that hair restoration is a big thing, especially in this wellness space that we're in, because women, we're losing our hair too, as we, some of us, as we're going into perimenopause and things, as like you notice like hair loss, and of course, I know that the men's market is up and it's just increasing market share in the medical aesthetic space. So do you see like there's a correlation in that uptick with like, wellness and also men's aesthetic services? Do you find that correlation is kind of like bringing in a new dimension for you?
Oh, yes. I think hair, especially in the physician dispensing space, it
Mhm,
is, I think we're just kind of scratching the surface.
mhm,
Outside, right, over the counter, department store, online, there are a million different companies and all sorts of things. But taking it to that next level of efficacy and having to prove that your product works with third party clinical data, our space, I think, is going to continue to grow because not just men, but as you mentioned, women have tried all sorts of things, whether it's over the counter or online, some of which work, some of which don't. But
mhm,
they want and they're willing to spend a bit more on something with proven results, then you're going to get that in with physicians. And so I believe that although we also offer facial rejuvenation, I think hair is going to be a big component that we will continue to build around. And for men, I've got friends who have tried everything
yeah.
and are willing to pay just about anything if it works. So I think there is a very there's a huge upside if you do it right in this space. And again, there is competition, but it's not as vast as what you'll see online or in department stores.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so tell me about that decision making because you could have gone D2C, direct to consumer or what have you, and a lot of brands have done that. And as you see, a lot of legacy brands in medical aesthetics who
Yeah.
would never would have gone D2C have now said, "Oh, we offer it online too," directly competing with their practice founders and things. And you know, what are your thoughts about that? And also, why did you say, I'm going to go physician dispense, practice owner dispense versus D2C?
Yeah. So I'm a bit old school in that, having been in this space now for 20 years. And in my opinion, there really isn't an industry without your physicians and your providers. And I think if you want them to help grow your brand, which, right, that you want their trust, you want them to carry your product and promote it to their patients, the
Mhm,
feedback I've heard consistently over the years is frustration when a brand decides to go D2C. I'll say this, it's not just D2C because I think people understand that the internet isn't going anywhere and people
mhm,
love to shop online. But what I think really bothers them isn't the opportunity to have access to it online. It's when it's 30% off. And
mhm,
now they feel like they're competing with the vendor that they're purchasing from. And that can create some interesting conversation. So for us, we really want to focus on our providers
mhm,
and push all sales and revenue opportunities to them. So, for example, we list our retail product on our website, nowhere else. But what we do to encourage people to go to the providers is we increase the price online. We don't discount it, we actually increase it by about 30% because
mhm,
our goal isn't to be an e commerce D2C brand. Our goal is to earn the trust and the support of the providers. So, if a patient is in an office having a conversation and somebody brings up Invo, and we all know this happens, they look on their phone before they make
yeah,
a decision to see if they can get it cheaper, right?
yeah,
What they'll find is that online it's more expensive. So like
mhm,
why would you buy something that's more expensive when you can get it at the most affordable price with our providers? So my thought is providers have always been really supportive with every company I've been with. They literally are the industry. We have nothing without them. So our goal is to really lean into them and support them.
Well, Yeah, because so you have a product mix where have you've had the the skin nectar which I've used or having the serum, and then you also have something that you can microneedle into the skin as well and the scalp. Can you tell me a little bit more about the line that you carry?
Yeah, so we have four products. We're lean right now. Our retail product is called the Rejuvenating Complex. And so the concept there is an all-in-one approach, which is the company's kind of motto. We're leaning into skin minimalism. And what I mean by that is the feedback has been over the years that patients are seemingly a bit frustrated with expensive multi-step regimens,
Mm,
right? They don't really want to spend $1,000 a month on skincare. They still want the efficacy, but they want less steps at a more affordable price. So it's like, okay, that's a pretty big challenge. We believe we provide a solution to that problem with our unique innovative technology and our retail products. So we have a combination of growth factors, proteins, peptides, and exosomes in the rejuvenating complex, as well as many of your other very common favorite ingredients like hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, vitamin E, niacinamide, defensins, carnosine, arnica, like all of those ingredients that equate to about 6 to 7 products
mhm,
in one, where we believe we've increased efficacy, we reduce the steps, and we make it more affordable. So
mhm,
that's our retail product, and we're building around that. The other three products are all designed for in-office use with
mhm.
in-office procedures like microneedling and laser. And
Yes.
so we have three different products. One is called the Rejuvenating Skin Solutions, and that is for general anti-aging, right? You can use it with microneedling, post laser. Box number two, or product number two, is the Brightening Skin Solutions, and this is targeting hyperpigmentation. And
Mhm,
then product number three are our advanced hair solutions that you would use with microneedling and hair restoration. As we grow, we'll obviously add additional SKUs, most likely retail, but I think we will be streamlined. I don't think we'll ever have 30 to 40 products. I think we'll probably end up having about 15, maybe 16 very targeted products backed by science.
yeah, and I think that's and everyone has their model. Obviously, it's funny. I was with a friend of mine who's we were doing a podcast recording this weekend in Boston or have you, and we went into Brunello Cucinelli, right? And it's just like beautiful, obviously, but it's just like you don't see a bunch of different products. It's just like they have very well made products, but it's very like you know these are 5 shirts. These are 6 scarves. It's not like you go to, like, some store where you have to look through 500 things to see what you want. That's a strategy. And so for you, I wanted to ask you something else, and so I know that you've been working in other companies for decades or have you, but what is something that you feel you kind of had to unlearn as a founder that worked well when you were working, in a more less startup environment, more sales executive, corporate leader eventually. But what had to change for you?
Yeah, I mean, so part of that was the evolution of my career. Each step was something new that you had to kind of unlearn, but making the leap from an executive leader to a founder, where, as an executive leader, you're receiving direction and instructions, the strategic approach from the founder. You are literally the one driving the strategy. And so
Mhm,
for me it was speed, right? As a salesperson, as a manager, as an executive, oftentimes you wanted to move with speed to hit your numbers or get a different project done, which is great. But
mhm,
as a founder, all of your decisions compound. So if you make a decision too quickly, there can be compounding effects down the road from that quick decision. So just taking additional time to think through your strategy, final decisions, try to poke as many holes in those decisions before you move forward. You're never going to be right 100% of the time, and eventually you've got to jump and you've got to do something. But I think just being a bit more calculated and taking time to really think through everything as effectively as possible has been a change and something that I had to unlearn. But again, that was kind of the evolution of my career, was is step by step getting to where I am now.
Yeah, exactly. Because being a founder, because going from sales executive to C-suite, C-suite officer, then going to founder, which is like, I would say adjacent in a way. It's definitely a different skill set. Like you said, performing, even like just understanding how do your first order actions create,
Oh
different
yeah.
outcomes because it's a cascading effect because at the end of the day, and as you guys who are listening, who are business owners know, it all comes down to you because no one can look to anyone else. They're saying, okay, if this is great, they're looking at you. If this is terrible, they're looking at you. So it's
Oh yeah.
the different level of like responsibility and weight. And it's like, now you're kind of like in a similar position with the people that you're working with every day. And it's cool though. And so for you, like, how do you build credibility in this category, in this wellness here that is like still being like defined, debated and like regulated or what have you? Because there's so many different options that medical practitioners can go with. And so, how do you build credibility?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's a noisy space. And I
Yeah.
think the exosomes specifically is a key buzzword right now. Stem
Hmm.
cell regenerative aesthetics, longevity, and once you see something work, there are a lot of people that want to try to incorporate that quickly.
Yeah.
So I think for us, we don't want to be looked at as a company that's a me too. We want to be looked at as innovative and a leader in stem cell regenerative aesthetics. But to build and earn that trust, especially when you're a new company, in my opinion, is open and clear communication,
Hmm.
complete transparency with your team and with your providers, and do your best to under promise and over deliver and do that consistently. If you make us not if like when you make a mistake, because mistakes are going to happen,
Yeah.
own it. Right? Don't try to, oh, it wasn't us or whatever. Like, own it and
Hmm.
correct it. If you do those things consistently, in my opinion, I think people appreciate that and will begin to trust you. And I think I get why providers get frustrated with the amount of companies that want their business, and there can be some exaggerated claims. But if you can cut through that noise and earn that trust, I think most of these people want to trust you. And
Yeah.
so if once they give you that opportunity, just live up to it. And
Yeah.
that whole motto of under promise and over deliver is what we strive to do, backed by our clinical data. Come to the table with that communication and transparency, and good things usually happen.
Yeah, I had to agree with that. I think even in these times, it's like people just want people to just forget over delivered. People just want people to listen.
Just a little,
It's like how many times it's like you call or do something, you're like, why can't I get a hold of someone? Like,
yeah,
why isn't someone responding or have you? It's like people just want people to deliver.
just
That
deliver. Yeah, if you say something, mean it, back it up. One of the things we do that's, I think, in line with that, that we get a lot of kind of surprised responses, is we stand behind our products 100%, meaning we have an open-ended return policy, right? There's no, fine wording in the contract that says you have 30 days and anything after 30 days, there's going to be a 20% restocking fee. None of that.
Mhm,
If you aren't happy with the product or with us, that's our fault.
mhm,
So you can, whatever inventory you have left, as long as it's not expired, if you wanted to, you could return that for a full refund. So we do that because we're small and we're new, and we want people to take a chance. That helps to show that we stand on our principles, and alleviating that financial concern. That's a good early way to kind of differentiate yourself, and people go, oh, this company, I've never heard of that before.
mhm.
Let's at least take a look and see if we can give them a chance.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then also, like, with practices that are bringing out all these things, what is a good practice fit? Like, what type of mix of patients would someone have to bring you guys in, or what do they believe about themselves to think that they're a match for INVO Aesthetics? Because not every aesthetic product is a match for every practice because people have their own ideal patient profiles and things like that. So Tell me about that match.
Yeah, to start, we require a medical director to be involved and present. So, to really make sure that we stay in line with medical grade. From there, practices that are aesthetically focused. So, some of the med derms are great, but what we find is those that are really diving into aesthetics have their game plan. Offices that offer microneedling and laser resurfacing and are looking for an efficacious and affordable add-on that can really take that procedure to the next level. I think offices that are listening to their patients and understand, okay, if my patients are frustrated with expensive multi-step regimens, is there a solution out there? If so, what does that look like? I think those sorts of offices are the best fit. I think the ones, obviously we're never going to not partner with a medical grade office, but
Obviously.
those offices that carry every brand, we're thankful for the partnerships because we haven't been around as long yet. They tend to focus on what they're comfortable with and what they know the best. So, and we appreciate those, but the offices that are really having the best results are the ones that I just described, where it's really aesthetically focused and they're leaning into stem cell regenerative aesthetics.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can imagine so. If you carry every product under the sun, not only, and I've seen it in practices, not only are you confusing your team members for like, okay, I had to learn all these new protocols or have you, you're also confusing patients when they come in and they see a whole wall of all these different things. And they're like, okay, there's about nine different brands represented here or 15 or what have you. Where do I even start? What does this practice actually believe in? I'm a big believer of in as less is actually more. And it's like if you have like a practice thesis about this is what you believe about regenerative medicine, this and that, and then you have like certain protocols, you just like work it in, that's a great way to, in my opinion, and what I've seen with, a multi-million practices, they kind of like focus instead of trying to be
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
I know you have like a team members and everything now. And so like, you talked about your team members really try and help your providers or practitioners rather like co-create like outcomes for their patients and not pushing products. So like what does that actually look like in the field in a practical sense if someone's working with Invo?
I love that question. I think it's easy sometimes to, especially when you're chasing a number, right?
Mhm,
Of these companies, you encourage your team to get to the next level. So you're chasing a number, which means you have an agenda and you're
mhm,
really focused on your agenda. I think it's best to go in with an open mind, ask a lot of questions to better understand with that particular office and partner what they're looking for. What are the
mhm,
points? What are their needs? How can Invo help with those versus coming in with my agenda and saying, yeah, no, I don't really care about what you just said, but buy this. That
mhm,
typically doesn't work so well. But that approach of listening more than you talk,
mhm,
asking good questions to do your best to uncover unmet needs, and then fill those needs with what we bring to the table, I think is a good step. And then doing that consistently, where if you don't know something or you don't have what they're looking for, don't make it up. Just
mhm.
say, hey, that great question, doc. Let me get back to you, but then get back to them. And that over time, I think, helps to build that trust. And then it really becomes a partnership where you're helping them achieve their goals versus just coming in with your agenda.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the whole consultative approach comes from, right? It's just like asking questions, listening, and just seeing if there's alignment. And that's the best case scenario instead of trying to push things, as you said.
Yes, and sometimes it's not the right fit. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I know, I know you like salespeople are very competitive.
Mhm,
A no is like, oh, okay, now it's a challenge, right?
mhm.
But sometimes it's not the right fit. Don't force it. There's so much opportunity out there. If it's not the right time right now, that's okay. But move on to somebody who might be in a better position and more receptive or a better fit for the company.
Yeah, and then going into like your culture that you're building at Invo as a leader, it's like, what kind of company culture are you intentionally trying to build? That's a differentiator because people are going to want to are working for you or going to want to maybe look to work for you in the future. So, what type of culture are you intentionally building there?
Yeah, so culture is one of the reasons we wanted to start this. In my opinion, if you can influence culture for sure in any facet of the company, but if you're the founder, one of the founders, it's really up to you and your team to set the bar. And that
Mhm,
was a big deal for us. So it's around a few different things: innovation, communication, providing an environment of trust where the team truly feels safe
mhm.
raising their hand in maybe a difficult situation where they might not agree with you,
Yeah.
right? And but actually providing that sort of environment where there is trust and they feel comfortable and they know that there won't be backlash and that we're in it together, because a lot of companies will say all the right things, but do you actually do them?
Yeah.
And I think for me at least, I love that I started carrying a bag. So I've experienced what it feels like, and throughout my the growth of my career, now being in a position where all those years where I would say to myself quietly, like, if I was in charge, this is what I would do. Now it's time to step up and see if the team will respond. And one thing I value is that true two-way communication
Mhm,
from the team. And a phrase I use a lot is like, poke as many holes in it as you can,
mhm,
because the sooner we can work through those and seal up those holes, the stronger we will be collectively.
mhm.
So that's really what we're trying to do. And the other great thing about being a smaller company is it's easier to manage the culture now
Yeah.
when you have 10 to 15 people versus 100 to 150 people. And
Mhm,
we've been fortunate to get interest from some incredibly talented people from some of the biggest companies that are President's Club winners,
mhm.
who saw the value and want to be in at the ground level, because those opportunities don't come around that often. And
Yeah.
they all set the bar very high when
Mhm.
it comes to culture. So as we add to the team, it's really hard to go against the grain when the bar is set so high.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's kind of, we know that there's going to be hiccups along the way, but culture means a lot, and we're doing our best to really instill our core values.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing, because your core team, as you said, does set that bar, does set the culture, and even for those of you who are listening, it's like who you hire is everything, and what you tolerate is everything as well. Because what you say no to, or you say this doesn't fly here, that's also something that is going to communicate to people who are working for you what is actually the culture here. Because, like you said,
Oh,
you can say anything, right?
yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because it's something I didn't say about the culture that you just like. Accountability
Yeah.
is huge. And I don't care if you're the top performer, you can be held accountable too. And to
Mhm.
what you said, I couldn't agree more. What you do or what you don't do sends a message. And
Yeah.
so if you are willing to hold the top of the top accountable, what message does that send to everybody else? And I think it's important to really build on it. It's hard to implement that 2 years in.
Mhm.
It's really easy if you've been doing that from day one. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
And people will see that, and they'll think twice before potentially doing something, versus if it's just kind of the wild wild west, people are just like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it, when you work in corporations or different things, and maybe the culture's not so great. You've seen it. It's like, there's this one person who can get away with murder, right? But it's like people think, but there's good people around them, obviously, but it erodes culture over time when one person who maybe is a top performer revenue wise or something else, or maybe he has had like seniority, like has been there a long time, gets away with murder. So then people looking up say, huh,
Yeah,
this place is not as buttoned up as I thought. And then that's when things start to slip in all different sorts of places. It's scary. It's like a
yeah,
cancer.
it is. And this is something I'm really passionate about. And I think it goes back to my experience in sports.
Yeah.
If you have the best teams aren't always the most talented. They're the
Mhm.
ones that work together. And oftentimes the ones that work together are very well coached, and those coaches have the same expectations for everybody. Whether you're the top player, whether you're coming off the bench, doesn't matter. This is what we do, no exceptions. and then everybody buys into that culture. You're working together for a common goal, and it's actually there's an energy to it, and it's exciting and it's fun. But I think you need to be consistent with that. You can't pick and choose when you're going to hold people accountable. It can be a tough conversation, but if you do it with like love and good intent
Mhm.
versus the alternative, I think people also want to be coached, right?
That part.
Yeah, people want to be coached, but if you not in a demeaning way,
Yeah.
but in a hey, here's something I noticed. Are you open to feedback? You're really good at this, but what if we did X, Y, and Z?
Mhm.
So anyway, that's something I'm passionate about. It goes back to the sports, and there are a lot of great leaders out there that I've learned from who do it
Mhm.
very well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because I love what you said there. People actually want to be coached because at the end of the day, when you're a founder, it's like some people try to abdicate that responsibility, but it's like, no, you're your arena to see, okay, this player works really well here. This player works really well here. This one works better over here. And then see that and then assign people properly. And, and I think every human wants to get better. So
Yeah,
it's my opinion there.
I
So yeah, so let's go to the future then, and so for you, where do you think regenerative aesthetics is headed, and what do you think Invo's role is in shaping that future in medical aesthetics?
I think I mean so that's a great question because there's a lot of potential outside of skincare, topical skincare and hair restoration. So
Mhm,
I'm not an expert in that, but I think that stem cell regenerative aesthetics is here to stay. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's rooted in actual science. There are different industries and many companies investing tremendous amount of time and resources into exploring what can be done
mhm,
with stem cell regenerative aesthetics. So I think the future is very bright. I
mhm,
think companies will be more streamlined, meaning that kind of what we talked about before with skin minimalism. I think the multi-step, 10-step regimens are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller because you can do more with less, which means I think it'll be more affordable for patients as well. And yeah, there's just so much opportunity in this space. A lot of it will depend on, and this is really for the injectable companies, I think, but the FDA and what they deem is appropriate or not appropriate.
mhm,
For us, our goal is to be a leader in
mhm,
innovation. We, the thing that we really hang our hat on, it's not just exosomes or growth factors or peptides. It's complete regenerative signaling,
yeah,
and where we believe we're a bit different is blending all of those together versus the traditional approach of those offered separately. And
mhm,
so, leaning into that, we've got two amazing stem cell expert PhDs where I think the future is bright for both facial rejuvenation and hair restoration again, where you can get really efficacious, better results with less steps.
and I love that because I'm a minimalist myself. You're not gonna see me. I'm a man. I'm no better than a man when it comes to that stuff.
I think most people are. It's like I don't know of too many people who have an hour leisurely in the morning to take their time. It's like, how do we get this done quickly, if at all?
Mhm.
And in out, what's next? So the more streamlined and efficacious you can be, I think the better.
Yeah, and for me personally, I agree with that 100%. And so that's so great. So, my last thing I want to ask you, if you could leave our listeners, because our listeners are I call them like younger listeners, maybe less than 5 years in practice. If you can leave a word of advice for our listeners about business building or about how to create an ecosystem around what they're doing or our practice thesis.
Oh, that's a good one. So from the practice standpoint, definitely not an expert, but from overall business practices,
Mhm.
what's worked well for us and what I've learned from the leaders that have had success, because I've worked with startups, I've worked with companies that have been acquired, so I've seen what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think really being calculated, taking your time, doing your research, coming up with a game plan around your core values and what you want to do, and poking as many holes in it as possible, building a team where you have teammates that do something completely different than you, right? Somebody, what do they bring to the table that you can't do? Building that trust. Once you've poked enough holes where you feel confident about your strategy, then you got to take the leap, right? You can't just constantly reevaluate and try to get better and get, at some point you have to jump. But if you do those things consistently and really stick to your values, I think that is a recipe for success. Now, there are going to be unexpected challenges and hurdles. But if you, and I do believe this, I don't think people rise to the occasion. I think people fall to their level of preparation. So if you're incredibly prepared and you get hit with a curveball, it won't be as hard as if you aren't very well prepared. And so there's different things, and I can nerd out on this sort of stuff, but there are
You
different
can nerd out, it's fine.
there are different things that I think you absolutely need to be successful. And for me, it's like number one is ethics, but underneath that umbrella, it's effort, attitude, coachability, and accountability. If you bring all four of those every day, you will be successful. You 100% will. And so the effort is like give 100% during working hours. Doesn't mean you have to work 60 hours a week, but when you're working, give it your all. Do it with a positive attitude, which is really easy when things are going well. But like, how's your attitude when shit hits the fan? Are you still positive? Coachability, we talked about that. Accept coaching and feedback. And then the last one, accountability, is my favorite. It's like, don't blame anybody else. There's no excuses here. It's you. And then under that, I believe discipline, consistency, and sacrifice, at least for me. Are you disciplined to do what you don't want to do? Right? Like, I want to lose weight. All right. Are you disciplined not to eat pizza and drink wine? And then consistency, right? Like doing that every day, every week, every month, all year. And then sacrifice, it's like, what are you willing to give up? Because all the best, and this is the sports guy in me, but if you look at all of the best, there are multiple things they sacrificed to get there. And so those are kind of the things I believe. I know that wasn't a short answer, but if you're a business owner, kind of relying on those principles it will help for sure.
And I think that was a great answer. I, I'm like, we should have started on that. Well, that was great. Yeah. So, Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. And everyone, everything about INVO Aesthetics is going to be in the show notes, their website. And on the website, obviously, you can see how to get in contact with the representative or what have you. So Nate, thank you so much for your time today. And I love INVO Aesthetics personally. I do use the serum. And so you guys try it.
Thank you so much. Always good to see you and catch up. Love everything you're doing, and thanks for having us.
Of course.
Want more clarity like this? Join the Branded Practice newsletter community. I write about strategy, systems, and brand leadership straight to your inbox. Go to diamondhandsmedia.com to sign up. And if this episode hit, share it with someone still building without a brand. This is the Diamond Hands Podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go lead.